and welcome back to Reality Recap, the show where we go behind the scenes of the shows and find out what they don't always film. Today, we're addressing something big, something that, if it is true, would entirely change what we believed we knew of the Brown family's demise. Let me be completely clear before I begin. What you're about to hear comes from a mix of insider whispers, exclusive theories built by legal experts who have tracked this family for years, and a speculative deep dive into a narrative that has been forming in the background for nearly a decade. This is not confirmed news. This is a what-if scenario, a reconstruction built from the breadcrumbs that have been left behind. But how the pieces fall into place. It is frightening. So sit back, grab your beverage, and let's dive into one of the most jaw-dropping theories so far: Meri Brown's lawsuit against Kody and Robyn Brown. Kody had once stated, "It is about the kids. This is just a piece of paper." Robyn chimed in, "It doesn't change anything in our family. Meri is still his wife. She was promised it was a sacrifice for the family, a noble act to secure the future of 3 children. It appeared at the time to be a sacrificial gesture on the part of the first wife, a demonstration of loyalty. But almost a decade on our stitched-together theory, based on insider reports, says something quite different was going on behind the scenes. Not sacrifice, but conspiracy. A tale that, in this context, grows into a historic lawsuit alleging the divorce itself was a deliberate plot. A plan from inception to take power away from Meri. Okay, folks? Mind blown, right? Because this is just the tip of the iceberg. If you are thinking this is as incendiary as I think it is, and you want to track every turn in this narrative, give that like button now. It is telling YouTube, hey, we need more of this reporting. And if you haven't already, subscribe and ring the bell. You don't want to miss a single second of the evidence we're about to present. Okay, let's dive in. To understand the scope of this supposed lawsuit, we must look back. Not simply to 2014, but to the origins of the Brown family itself. Meri wasn't merely a wife. She was the first wife, the legal wife, the woman who introduced Kody into plural marriage, and through that, the woman who paved the way for Janelle and Christine. For 24 years, she held a singular position. Legally, she was Kody's wife, in the view of their religion and society. She was the matriarch alongside him. And this role wasn't figurative. It carried actual power. Legal and economic decisions passed through her. Her name appeared on deeds, bank accounts, business registrations. In all ways, she was the first money in what one might refer to as the Brown family business. And then Robyn arrived. Robyn brought with her a different dynamic, and soon a request, one that seemed benevolent at first blush. Kody wished to adopt Robyn's 3 children from her previous marriage, Dayton, Aurora, and Brianna. It seemed like a lovely thing to do, one that would bind the children legally to him and safeguard their future in case something ever happened to Robyn. But here was a catch. According to state law, Kody could not legally adopt his wife's children unless he were married to her legally, and currently, Kody was legally married to Meri. That brings us to the now iconic couch scene, a tear-filled, gut-wrenching moment that's become central to Sister Wives history. But let's look at it differently, not as television drama, but as the start of a potential legal argument. In this theory, Meri's hypothetical legal team, let's call them the powerhouse firm of Vance and Sterling, would later call that scene the genesis of the deception. On that couch, there were 3 main players. First, Kody, the patriarch, making the request. He frames it as nothing more than a formality. For the good of the children, listen to his words, "It's a piece of paper. It's about solidifying our family. We're not changing the structure." He downplays the legal weight and amplifies the emotional side. That is step 1 of the scam in this theory, presenting a significant legal and financial action as a gesture that means nothing, with no actual repercussions for Meri. Second, Robyn. She takes the role of the grateful, emotional recipient. But she's also mindful of Meri's feelings. She cries. She insists, "I didn't ask for this." She praises Meri's sacrifice, promising through tears that Meri will always be the first wife. In this framework, that's step 2. The co-conspirator reinforcing the narrative, soothing the target into believing there's nothing to fear. And lastly, Meri, the subject. Her anguish is evident. Her hurt is apparent. she is forfeiting a 24-year-long legal existence. And she is not weeping tears of happiness. She's not crying out of joy. She's grieving a loss. Yet, live on camera for the world to witness. She is persuaded that this loss is only symbolic. She's told she's making a sacrifice built on promises, and here lies the core of Meri's alleged lawsuit. It isn't about spiritual marriage. No court would ever weigh in on that. It's about two legal principles: promissory estoppel and fraudulent misrepresentation. In plain words, fraudulent misrepresentation is when one makes a false statement with the aim of persuading another individual to sign an agreement. The idea here is that Kody and Robyn knew quite well that the divorce would fundamentally change the family's financial and power dynamics. But they promised Meri that it wouldn't, only to make her sign. Promissory estoppel, though distinct, is also as effective. It holds that if a person makes an express and clear promise and you act in reliance on the promise to your disadvantage, the promiser can be held liable. As per this doctrine, Meri's lawyers would contend that the couch scene and numerous other dialogues constituted a binding oral and spiritual contract. The promises were clear: you're still going to be the first wife. Your access to the family's property will still exist. This legal document won't diminish your position or power. Meri trusted that, based on those promises, she acted against her best interest. She signed away her legal position. The case would contend that this wasn't a gift, but a trade, and Kody and Robyn had never intended to honor their end. So what went on after the divorce agreement was signed and the new marriage certificate was completed? Did everything remain the same? Was Meri still accorded equal say as the first wife crew? You already know the answer. We all saw it happen. Her position began to erode almost immediately. Communication faltered. Kody, now legally tied to Robyn, spent even more time at her house. Decisions that had once been made in council were suddenly handled between Kody and Robyn, then delivered to the others. Meri's voice, once central, faded, first a whisper, then an echo, then silence, and then the catfishing scandal broke. For years, the Brown family line, promoted most strenuously by Kody, had been that this tragedy broke his relationship with Meri. It was her betrayal, her huge error, and the reason he couldn't stay wholly married to her. But what if it wasn't the reason at all, but a symptom, or even a convenient excuse? The timeline indicated in these reports implies the estrangement began prior to catfishing even being a rumor. The late 2014 divorce provided Kody the vehicle. The emotional withdrawal was already in progress. When catfishing broke out in 2015, it merely provided the ideal cover to further accelerate what was already taking place: the methodical marginalization of Meri Brown. Consider it, for years, Kody relied on that narrative. Every time someone challenged his hardness towards Meri, he could reference the scandal. She'd cheated. She'd betrayed him. Trust had been broken. It stilled objections and presented Meri as the villain of her own defeat. A perfect cover story, while fans were fixated on the drama of the catfish. Our sources suggest a quieter, more deliberate drama was happening underneath. A financial one, and this is where Meri's case would shift from emotional promises to money, because this was never only about love or title. It was about assets. Assets built over decades. Now, picture the courtroom. Meri's lead attorney, Eleanor Vance, a sharp, no-nonsense litigator in her 50s, steps before the judge. Her words are clear: Your Honor. For years, the public was given a narrative of emotional breakdown and betrayal. But we stand before you today to offer a different truth, a narrative of financial deceit and deliberate deception. We will demonstrate that Mr. and Mrs. Brown didn't just shatter our client's heart. They devised a scheme to eliminate her 24-year financial interest in this family. Tears on the Couch in 2014 were not just about marriage. They concealed a financial coup-strong language. But could they be substantiated? That is where the case would lie, on proving that a substantial financial change took place soon after Kody had legally wed Robyn. Prior to the divorce, according to their own testimonies on the show, the Brown family funds existed in a communal pool. They even referred to it as the family bank. All their income went into the pool, and the expenses were all paid out of it. Though the arrangement was always somewhat ambiguous, Meri, being the legal wife, had actual protected rights. She co-signed on mortgages. She was on joint accounts. On paper, she was an owner in the family business. According to the theory, Meri thought that this would not change. Why wouldn't it? It was meant to be mere paper. The pot was still the pot. The family was still the family. But this is where our hypothetical trial's first big piece of evidence would emerge. Exhibit A, the financial change. Imagine a forensic accountant, David Chen, on the witness stand. He is number crunching, stoic, conveying only what the papers say. Your Honor, we reviewed the Browns' 2013 to 2016 financial records. Prior to the legal split in September of 2014, there was a pattern that was consistent. Large family funds were being held within a joint business account, jointly titled in the names of Kody Brown and Meri Brown. We will refer to this as the Family Prime account. Meri Brown had sole signing authority. This account paid for down payments on the Las Vegas houses, family business costs, and significant transfers. He puts on his glasses and resumes speaking. On the 5th of December 2014, just a little over 3 weeks since Kody and Robyn's law marriage, that account was shut down. The then over six-figure balance was transferred to a new account set up in the name of Kane Farr Family Enterprises, an LLC that was registered the same week. The sole signatories, Kody Brown and Robyn Brown. Boom, there it is. The initial unmistakable step. Money that had previously been under common control by Kody and Meri was now in Kody and Robyn's possession and control. And it just didn't stop there. The accountant would present a timeline. In the following 18 months, streams of income that had always flowed into the communal pool started flowing instead into accounts that only Kody and Robyn could see. TLC paycheck deposits. Profits from my sister wife's closet. All of it became part of a new money system. One Meri was excluded from. But still, she was supposed to pay her portion. She paid the mortgage on her big house in Las Vegas. She covered part of family bills. But she did not have control anymore. Her role moved from partner to, in economic terms, employee or renter, paying her keep with no voice in how the company was operated. Meri's attorneys would argue this was the direct, measurable outcome of fraudulent misrepresentation. She was promised nothing would change. And yet, the very first change was the dismantling of the financial system, restructuring it so that Kody and Robyn alone held the power. They'd play back that infamous couch scene. Meri's lawyer would press the point. Does this appear to be merely a sheet of paper? Does canceling joint accounts and creating a new LLC that does not include your 24-year partner appear to be something that doesn't change the family arrangement? The message would be unmistakable. This was no oversight. It was a deliberate financial strategy, with the emotional appeal of adoption as the Trojan horse to pass it. Naturally, Kody and Robyn's defense would counter. Their attorneys would argue that this wasn't malicious, it was practical. Your Honor, Kody's lawyer would say, my client acted logically. With his new legal marriage, it made sense to restructure finances. Mr. Brown became legally responsible for Robyn and her 3 children, along with his and Meri's child. Consolidating accounts was a prudent decision. The separation in finances wasn't meant to harm Miss Brown. It reflected the breakdown of their relationship. Something she herself admits played a role. And naturally, they'd be relying heavily on the catfishing scandal. They'd brand Meri as unstable, dishonest. They'd say her own actions necessitated financial separation to safeguard the family. But Meri's legal team would push back hard. The timeline, they'd say, didn't support that argument. The financial consolidation started before catfishing ever surfaced. The plan was already in place. The scandal merely gave Kody and Robyn the perfect excuse to move faster. This financial information would be the foundation of the case. But the following makes the supposed fraud even more intimate and even more devastating, because it ties all this back to the land the Browns had considered their promised land, Coyote Pass. The 2018 relocation to Flagstaff and the $820,000 buying of that property was presented as a family investment. In fact, it became a financial disaster from the beginning. 4 wives, 1 husband, all constructing their forever homes together. Meri put in her part. She sold her Las Vegas house, a house she had put her own money and labor into, and that equity was placed in the family fund, the same one now reportedly run by Kody and Robyn alone. She paid her dues and earned her piece of land. We all sat through the maps. Meri received the lot in the trees, the one she adored. But land isn't really yours until your name is on the deed. And this leads us to Exhibit B, the head of household clause and the refinancing plan. Insider accounts indicate that when the family was strapped financially in Flagstaff, Trying to make mortgage payments and land payments, Kody and Robyn refinanced their huge $1 million house, the one they occupied, while Meri rented elsewhere. Refinancing is a normal financial tool, but how they allegedly executed it forms the second pillar of Meri's lawsuit. To secure the best loan, they reportedly leveraged the family's main asset, the Coyote Pass property itself, land that Meri, Janelle, and Christine had all contributed to. But when the new loan documents and deeds were filed, something striking happened. Kody was listed as the primary owner, the sole co-owner of the primary parcel, against which the largest portion of the loan was secured. Robyn Sullivan Brown. Meri's name was absent. Janelle and Christine were listed on separate smaller parcels. But the core documents tying the new house to the family land effectively erased Meri's 24-year investment. She wasn't recognized as a co-owner or a primary stakeholder. In the eyes of the bank and the law, her stake had vanished, absorbed into the equity now controlled by Kody and his one legal wife. Meri's lawyers would argue this was the ultimate bait and switch. She had been convinced to give up her legal status with the promise her stake would remain protected. Then, using that very legal status, the exclusive marriage of Kody and Robyn, they allegedly rewrote ownership of assets she helped buy, cutting her out completely. It was a legal and financial masterstroke. They used family funds, including Meri's, to buy land. Then, they leveraged their exclusive legal marriage to borrow against that same land while removing her name from the deeds. She was left with all the risk, none of the legal ownership. This wasn't accidental. In the theory, it was intentional. The head of household clause, the signing on the line, the checks in the boxes, all tiny steps that culminated in the legal enactment of her demotion. Meri had been made impotent, beholden to an empire she had assisted in creating, and the most damning aspect, she supposedly didn't know. She wasn't consulted. She wasn't asked to sign off. She only found the discrepancies afterwards, when sorting out her finances ahead of her eventual exit. For these sources, this erasure financially was the turning point. Meri saw this wasn't just emotional abandonment. It was deliberate financial betrayal. The document she signed in 2014 wasn't merely a divorce ruling. It was, in reality, her autograph on her own economic eviction letter. She simply didn't know it then, and that is when she supposedly made up her mind to take action back. Not to win spiritual status, not to gain Kody's affection, but for justice, to regain what had been systematically taken under the construct of family harmony. The stage was set for a courtroom battle that would shatter the carefully constructed image of the Brown family. Welcome back to Reality Recap. If you're just joining us, we're diving into the explosive report that Meri Brown filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against Kody and Robyn Brown for fraud and promissory estoppel. In Part 1, we set the stage, the emotional vows during the 2014 legal divorce, followed by the swift and orchestrated fiscal transition, supposedly concentrating all authority and funds into Kody's hands and that of his new legal spouse, Robyn. And now, in Part 2, we step inside the courtroom. We'll take you through the incendiary evidence, the sensational testimony, and the hypothetical verdict that in this version rocked the plural marriage world and cleared the name of Meri Brown in the most public manner possible. The case of Brown v. Brown and Brown wouldn't have been a media circus by design. Meri's legal team, Vance and Sterling, would have advised against spectacle. This was never about reality television drama. It was about legal and financial restitution. But the defendant's notoriety meant the world would be watching. The trial would open with Eleanor Vance, Meri's lead counsel, delivering her opening statement. She would depict a woman who devoted her life and finances to a dream, only to be betrayed by the two people she trusted most. The narrative would frame Meri not as a jilted wife, but as a defrauded business partner. Eleanor Vance started. This case isn't about religion or love. It is about a contract. A contract negotiated on a couch in front of an audience of millions, but a contract nonetheless. Something was promised: surrender your legal status, and in exchange, your place and economic interest in this family will be protected. Meri held to her side of the bargain. The defendants, on this theory, started breaking their vows before the ink had even dried on their new marriage license. Kody and Robyn's defense squad, let's refer to them as Sharp and Associates, would respond in kind. They'd attack personally. They'd paint Meri as unstable and untrustworthy, and driven by revenge and jealousy, bringing up the catfishing scandal. Kody's attorney would contend, the plaintiff's case has a foundation of sand. This is an effort to make her regret and personal shortcomings into a money claim. There was no financial coup. This is a family adjusting to a new legal reality, a reality necessitated by the plaintiff's own emotional detachment, and, quite frankly, her own deceptions. This is not fraud. It is sour grapes. With war lines drawn, evidence presentation commenced. A systematic, brutal teardown of the Brown family's public persona. Exhibits A and B were referred to once again. The first witness, forensic accountant David Chen. Although we mentioned his report earlier, in court, he spent days on the stand walking the jury through dense financial records. The size of the alleged fraud became horrifyingly apparent. He didn't merely demonstrate the main account had been shut down. He offered a mountain of corroborating evidence, including credit card receipts. Before 2014, significant family expenses were dispersed among cards carried by Meri, Janelle, Christine, and Kody. Following 2015, a new trend was seen. A high-limit business card carried only by Kody and Robyn, on which most of the family travel, luxuries, and even grocery expenses were put on. Meri, Janelle, and Christine used their own individual cards more and more. The family pot was essentially turning into Kody and Robyn's personal account. Chen also showed the TLC income trail before the divorce. They made payments to the joint production company of the Brown family. And Meri was one of the founding partners. In 2016, a new agreement diverted payments to Kody and Robyn's LLC directly. Meri, Janelle, and Christine were subsequently paid a talent fee or stipend at the discretion of Kody and Robyn entirely. They progressed from being partners to sort of salaried staff of Kody and Robyn Inc., including My Sister Wife's Closet, the jewelry enterprise. Chen provided copies of the original business filings, where Meri was identified as a principal partner, and then showed how after 2015, the business was abandoned as assets and inventory were funneled into a new web-based business, owned by Robyn with no profit sharing for original partners. The contention: the business was strategically strangled so its value could be reallocated. In cross-examination, Kody's attorney tried to find holes. Mr. Chen, isn't it the case? My clients were just more successful at business? They were working hard while the plaintiff was sidetracked by internet relationships. Chen replied, I don't comment on anyone's work ethic, I can only comment on the money flow. The evidence provides a clear and unmistakable consolidation of all significant streams of revenue and assets into entities held solely by the defendants beginning in Q4 2014. The courtroom fell silent. The jury were writing notes frantically. That bit of paper was beginning to resemble less a divorce settlement and more a tightly drawn-up business strategy. Next came Exhibit B, Coyote Pass. Meri's legal team called a real estate law expert to the stand to explain the refinancing documents in excruciating detail. The expert presented the original purchase agreement, showing all 4 wives and Kody listed in the family trust that bought the land. Then he projected the 2019 refinancing documents. Just look at it, the expert continued. In the subsection describing collateral for this new $500,000 plus loan, the main collateral is the entire Coyote Pass property, but the borrowers and the signatories to the deed of trust are Kody Brown and Robyn Brown. Signing, they put a lien on the whole property, including parcels for the other wives, but named themselves the exclusive legal beneficiaries and main title holders. Simply, they had borrowed against a piece of property they didn't fully own, legally securing their position over other investors who had invested as well. As Kody testified, this would become the target of a zealous cross-examination. Meri's attorney, Eleanor Vance, questioned, Mr. Brown, you've testified that you always planned for each of your wives to have her own piece of land on Coyote Pass. Correct? Kody answered. Yes, that was the plan. We were going to be one big, happy family on the mountain. Vance went on. One happy family. But when you and your legal wife, Robyn, remortgaged your house, you took the whole property as collateral, didn't you? Kody replied. We had to. The family needed the money. It was a financial choice. Vance persisted. A financial choice you made without asking Meri Brown. Without her authorization, even though her money and investment were wrapped up in that land. Kody had shot back, I am the head of this household. I control the finances. It is my job. Vance shot back hotly. Is it likewise your job to take your first wife of 24 years off the deeds to use her assets for your own financial advantage, providing her with no legal protection? Is that the job of a head of household, Mr. Brown, or the hustle of a confidence artist? The courtroom exploded. The judge slammed the gavel, but the issue was established. They had supposedly employed their status under the law, the very law Meri had bestowed upon them, to take away power from her. To support the claims of a deliberate freeze, Meri's team needed more than numbers. They needed a pattern of behavior. This is where the trial grew intensely personal. The first witness was Meri Brown. She wasn't there to attack Kody, but to describe how things had been. She detailed the family's financial practices in Lehigh and Las Vegas, confirming that before Robyn, major decisions were made by group consensus. Meri testified, her voice firm, but with an undercurrent of sorrow. We had meetings, all of us. We'd sit in the living room and discuss everything. Purchasing the Lehigh home, relocating to Vegas, we all had input, we voted. It wasn't great, but we were a team. Meri, being the legal wife, often signed off on things last, but we made decisions as a group. She went on. After 2014, after Robyn's legal wedding, the meetings ceased. Things just took place. Purchases like Robyn's massive Flagstaff house weren't group choices. We were simply informed that it was going to happen. The family pot didn't feel like it belonged to us anymore. It felt like it belonged to them, and we were blessed to receive a slice. Meri's testimony was devastating. It corroborated the timeline of Meri's exclusion and showed it wasn't an isolated event, but a fundamental shift in how the family operated. The strongest testimony was provided by Meri Brown herself. She stood before the judge, not the weeping woman of the 2014 couch, but as a dignified, self-assured survivor. Her attorney guided her through her 30-year journey with Kody. She spoke of her early financial investment, juggling multiple jobs to fund the family, while the other wives stayed home to raise children, laying the groundwork for her foundational investment. Eleanor Vance inquired, Meri, when Kody and Robyn suggested the divorce so that he could adopt her children, what promises did they make to you? Meri, her voice breaking with tears, responded, They assured me. They swore it wouldn't change. Kody looked at me and said, You will always be my first wife. This is for the kids. It is just a piece of paper. Robyn held my hand and cried that she would never allow this to come between us, that our family unit was sacred. I believed them. I trusted them. Vance queried, if they had been honest with you, that they were going to close shared accounts, rework business agreements, and erase your name off family real estate deeds. Would you have signed the divorce agreement? Meri gazed at the jury, tears streaming freely. Never in 1,000 years. I would have never consented. They requested sacrifice, and I gave it freely. I didn't realize I was signing away my work. I didn't know I was paying for my own exile. This became the emotional climax of the trial. Meri's testimony connected the cold financial data to the raw human betrayal of broken promises, transforming the case from a dry financial dispute into a profound moral tragedy. The closing statements then set the opposing narratives. The lawyer for Kody and Robyn presented it as a natural but sad outcome of an ending relationship. Separation on a financial basis was not planned. He characterized Meri as an angry ex-wife, seeking one last payday. The love died. Trust was lost. It is a sad tale we hear every day, said Kody's attorney. The plaintiff would like for you to think this was an epic conspiracy, fit for a film. The truth is much more banal. It was a messy, painful breakup. Meri's attorney, Eleanor Vance, presented her final rebuttal. She walked to a large screen, which showed two pictures side by side. The left was the 2014 picture of the three of them sitting on the couch together. The right was a copy of the Coyote Pass refinancing deed, with only Kody and Robyn's names on it. Vance's voice rang true. The defense hopes you will think this is all about a broken heart. See these two photos. This is not a broken heart. This is a broken promise. A deliberately, legally made, broken promise. The defendants did not fall out of love with Meri Brown. They systematically took away her assets, power, and legacy, preying on her love for their children as the door to enter her life savings. They told her it was only a piece of paper, yet they used that piece of paper as weapon and shield, a weapon to take over the household finances, and a shield behind which to retreat when she questioned why she was being discarded. This is not a divorce proceeding, Your Honor. This is an armed robbery, and we ask you to compel them to surrender what they robbed her of." The jury was then sent out to deliberate. The waiting was torture. Days went by. The media circus was merciless. For Robyn and Kody, everything they had built and their reputation were at stake. For Meri, it was a last desperate cry for recognition, a chance for her version of events to be heard 10 years on. On the day of the verdict, the courtroom was full and charged. Robyn and Kody sat side by side, Robyn squeezing Kody's arm, pale and tense. Meri sat with her attorneys, back straight, face expressionless, hands clenched tightly together. The jury foreman, a middle-aged woman who had listened intently to every syllable of testimony, rose and unfolded a sheet of paper. "On the charge of fraudulent misrepresentation," she declared, "the jury finds for plaintiff Meri Brown. On the charge of promissory estoppel, we the jury find for plaintiff Meri Brown." It was a sweep. The jury believed Meri. The promises were made and maliciously broken. Next came the penalty phase. The jury recommended damages, but the court determined the final amount. Meri's team had submitted detailed financial documents outlining her lost equity in Las Vegas homes, her share of Coyote Pass, and lost income from joint ventures. The total requested ran into millions. After a short recess, the judge returned, handing down a decision that would hit the headlines. His deep, authoritative voice carried moral gravitas. "The court has considered the jury's verdict and the evidence heard. It is evident that Kody and Robyn Brown had a course of deception. They made clear, unequivocal promises to lead the plaintiff into a legal process, the breakdown of her 24-year marriage, which resulted in severe financial and legal damage." He stopped and gazed at Kody and Robyn. "Although this court is not empowered to decide matters of a religious or spiritual nature, it can and must rule on the plain financial promises made and broken. The facts reveal a bait and switch of the most cynical sort, employing the emotional appeal of child adoption to stage what only can be termed a legal and financial coup. The plaintiff was not treated as a spiritual equal, but as an economic impediment to be eliminated. Thus, the court holds Kody Brown and Robyn Brown jointly and severally responsible for damages. They are hereby directed to pay Meri Brown $400,000, a modest estimate of the equity that she was deprived of in the family's Flagstaff holdings she was tricked into assisting in their purchase, only to be systematically excluded from title. Let this decision be a resounding declaration. The law will not enact emotional and fiscal abandonment. The defendants are so instructed. The verdict, $400,000. Wasn't the millions she could have been awarded? But it wasn't the money, it was justice. Guilty of fraudulent misrepresentation, a bait and switch, a fiscal coup, abandonment, complete vindication. The aftermath, according to reports, was catastrophic for Kody and Robyn. Their carefully curated image of a righteous, if dysfunctional, family was shattered. The ruling confirmed what fans had long suspected. Robyn's entry into the family was not just an addition, it was a takeover, and Meri's divorce was the key that unlocked it. How would Kody and Robyn come up with the money? Probably they would have to sell Robyn's huge home, the one she said she needed for her young kids. They would probably even be required to sell off chunks of Coyote Pass, the land they had used to cut Meri out. The irony would be rich. For the other wives, the verdict would be seismic. For Christine, already gone, it would affirm that she had made the correct decision. For Janelle, it would be the final nudge to achieve her own financial freedom and break the last remaining bonds. This ruling wasn't a triumph merely for Meri. It was potentially the knockout blow to the whole polygamous Brown family project. And as for Meri, she would exit the courthouse, not with a histrionic, tear-stained oration, but with stillness, authoritative dignity. She had confronted her attackers, testified to her truth, and been heard. She had lost her marriage and family, but in that courtroom, she had regained something so much greater, her narrative. She had been assured it was just a piece of paper. In this theoretical story, the court concurred. Those words meant something, a contract whose violation compelled justice. So, crew, what is your guess? Might this incendiary theory be true? Do the fragments of evidence we've witnessed over the years fit into a tale of premeditated deception? Might this have been the secret story in the Brown family's downfall? This deep dive is, naturally, speculative, constructed from insider accounts and speculation. But it provides answers that have haunted a decade. It reimagines Meri not as an aggrieved, banished wife, but as a victim of a long-standing, elaborate deception. I want to hear your thoughts. Which pieces of evidence from the show support this theory? Which parts don't sit right with you? This is a massive conversation, and it's only getting started. Thanks for participating with me in this deep dive. If you enjoyed it as much as I did, like this video, subscribe to Sister Wives Crew, and hit the bell so you never miss our exclusive updates and speculations. Until we meet again, stay vigilant and stay curious.